hall was bright like morning even though it was afternoon. White flowers stood like soldiers on both sides. Cameras flashed. People whispered. Some smiled. Some frowned. Aisha's hands shook as she held a pen above the big marriage register. Her dress was simple and clean. Her eyes were full of tears, but not from sadness, from fear and joy mixed together like rain and sun at the same time. Beside her stood Johnson, the famous tech billionaire of Abuja. He wore a plain black suit, no gold chain, no loud watch, only a calm face and kind eyes. The registrar said, "Sign here." Aisha looked up. Her heart beat fast. She remembered sleeping on cold cement. She remembered the smell of dust and rain. She remembered the night she first met him. Just as the pen touched the page, the door burst open. "Stop!" a voice shouted. Everyone turned. A woman in sharp heels rushed in with 2 security men behind her. Cameras clicked even faster. Aisha froze. The registrar raised a hand. Johnson's jaw tightened. The woman pointed straight at Aisha and said, "She is not who you think she is." The hall became quiet, too quiet. Aisha's hand trembled above the paper. And then, everything went dark in her mind as we go back to how it all started. Before Abuja, there was Kano. Aisha was only 20 when her life broke into small pieces. Her mother died first. Her father followed after. The house that once carried laughter now carried silence. Friends tried to help, but every face reminded her of pain. The street smelled like smoke, pepper, and old memories. Every corner had a story. Every story had tears. Kano was too heavy for her heart, so one morning, with a small nylon bag and one old phone that charged only when you pressed the wire a certain way, Aisha climbed into a bus heading to Abuja. She didn't know anyone there. She didn't even know where she would sleep. But she knew she had to try. The bus coughed and shook. The road stretched like a long ribbon. Aisha looked out at the yellow grass and said softly, "God, please help me." Abuja felt big and bright, like a new sky. Glass buildings, fast cars, people who walked quickly like time was chasing them. Aisha found a small job as a cleaner in a plaza. She washed floors until they shone like water. She mopped, scrubbed, and smiled. The manager liked her because she was gentle and neat. Every month she saved a little. She believed one day she would rent a small room with a blue door and a white curtain. She believed one day she would sleep on a soft bed without keeping her slippers under her head like a pillow. But life is not a straight road. After a year, sickness came like a thief in the night. First it was cough, then fever, then weakness that felt like stones were tied to her legs. She missed work. She bought cheap drugs that did not help. The manager said, "We are sorry." The money she saved melted like ice in sun. Her rent was due. She could not pay. The landlord tried to wait, but he also had bills. One evening, Aisha carried her small bag to the street. Homeless again. She walked and walked until her feet felt like fire. She looked for a safe place. Abuja at night is beautiful, but it can also be cold and hard. At last, she found an uncompleted building near a quiet road. The gate leaned like a tired man. The walls had no paint. The floor was sand and broken cement. But to Aisha, that place was a roof. She picked one corner. She laid her scarf on the ground and hugged her bag like it was a friend. In the morning, builders came and went on the far side. No one noticed her. At night she returned, like a small bird finding the same tree. She kept the place clean. She swept her corner with a palm broom and arranged 2 blocks to make a seat. She whispered prayers into the dark. The wind answered with soft whistles through empty windows. One night, rain began. It came heavy and fast. It beat the zinc sheets that leaned against the wall. The smell of wet sand rose up. Aisha shivered inside her thin sweater and hugged herself. Lightning cracked the sky open. Thunder answered with a heavy voice. She closed her eyes and remembered her mother's song. It was a simple song about hope, about rain washing pain away. A shadow moved. Aisha sat up, heart jumping. She heard footsteps crunch on gravel. Then she saw a torchlight. 2 men in dark jackets entered the building. Their boots made strong, proud sounds on the wet floor. One of them said, "Who is there?" Aisha kept quiet. The beam of the torch moved across the bare walls and stopped on her face. She blinked. "A trespasser," the taller man said. "Let's chase her out." "Please," Aisha said softly, voice shaking. "I will go in the morning. I have nowhere now." The shorter man sighed and lowered his light. "Leave her. Rain is heavy tonight." But the taller man shook his head. Olga said no one should stay here. They stepped toward her. Before they reached, a car's headlights washed across the broken gate. The car door opened with a click. Footsteps, calm and even, entered the building. A man walked in without running. He carried no umbrella. Rain had sprinkled his shoulders. His eyes were sharp but kind, like someone who could see both danger and beauty at the same time. "Good evening, sir," the tall guard snapped into attention. The man looked around and spoke in a quiet voice. "Who is here?" "Sir, we found a girl." The new man's torch did not shake. It found Aisha's corner. The light stopped on her face, on the rain on her lashes, on the small bag she hugged like life itself. Their eyes met for 1 second that felt like a long road. The man's face changed, shock first, then worry, then something softer. "What is your name?" he asked. "Aisha," she whispered. The tall guard cleared his throat. "Sir, we can remove her, no problem." The man raised a hand. "Don't touch her." His voice was firm and the room became still. Aisha looked at him. He looked back. She didn't know who he was. He didn't say. He only took off his jacket and placed it on the block beside her. The jacket was warm from his body. He stood there, getting wet, while she held the jacket with both hands, like it was a gift. "Why are you here?" he asked. Aisha told him a small piece of the truth. Kano, parents, Abuja, work, sickness, rent. The words were simple, but each one carried a heavy stone. She spoke slowly so her tears would not jump out. When she finished, the rain also slowed, like it was listening too. The man nodded once. "I'm sorry," he said. It sounded like he meant it. He turned to the tall guard. "Bring the car closer." "Sir?" "Now." The car moved in. The engine hummed softly like a cat. The shorter guard, who had pity from the start, looked relieved. The tall guard still looked confused. The man faced Aisha again. "You will not sleep on this floor tonight," he said. Aisha shook her head. "I cannot go with you, sir. People are not always kind. I'm scared." He knelt a little so his eyes were level with hers. "You are right to be careful," he said. "My name is Johnson." He paused as if choosing small words on purpose. "This place is mine." Aisha's breath caught. "Yours," he nodded. "But it is not a prison. It will not hold you like this. Please come. Just for tonight, we will take you to a clinic. After that, we will talk. You will decide." Aisha looked at the door and the rain and the dark. She looked at his face. There was no rush in his eyes, no hunger, only patience and something she could not name yet. She stood up slowly, her legs swayed. Johnson reached out, not to pull, but to be ready in case she fell. She did not fall, but she was weak. She took 1 step, then another. The tall guard moved like he wanted to carry her bag. Johnson shook his head. "Let her hold it," he said softly. "It is not heavy to you. It is her life." They reached the car. The seats smelled like new leather and quiet. Aisha sat near the door, hands tight on her bag. Johnson sat in front. He spoke to the driver in a low voice, to the clinic. The car rolled out into the wet Abuja night. On the road, lights passed like stars falling one by one. The wipers moved left and right, like a slow dance. Aisha closed her eyes for a moment. She felt safe and afraid at the same time. Safe because she was dry, afraid because she did not know tomorrow. At the clinic, a nurse touched Aisha's forehead and smiled. "You will be fine," she said. They gave her warm porridge and medicine that did not taste sweet, but felt like help. Johnson sat in a plastic chair in the waiting area. He did not leave. He did not check his watch. He only stared at the wall like he was counting his thoughts. When the nurse said Aisha could rest, Johnson stood. He came to the door and spoke gently. "I will come back in the morning," he said. "If you want, I will help you. Not because I pity you, but because you deserve a chance. You decide." Aisha nodded, too tired to speak. For the first time in many nights, she slept on a bed with a sheet and a pillow. The fan turned slowly above her. The darkness did not feel like a thief anymore. It felt like a blanket. Morning came soft and gold. Aisha woke to the smell of soap and clean air. She washed her face and looked at herself in a small mirror. Her eyes were still tired, but they were brighter than last night. A knock sounded. She turned. Johnson stood at the door with a brown paper bag. Bread, eggs, fruit. He smiled, small and real. "Good morning," he said. Aisha opened her mouth to thank him, but before she could speak, two men in suits rushed down the hallway with papers and sharp voices. "Sir, the press found out," one shouted. "They are outside. They say a homeless girl is living in your property. They want a statement. Should we call the police? Should we remove her before they see?" Johnson's face did not change. He looked at Aisha, then at the men. He took a breath and said one sentence that made the nurse stop, made the suits freeze, and made Aisha's heart jump into her throat. "No one will remove her," Johnson said, "from today." And what he said next shocked everyone. The hallway went silent. Even the nurse holding the tray stopped. Johnson's voice was calm but strong as thunder, hiding behind a quiet sky. "From today," he said again, looking at the two men in suits, "Aisha will not be treated as a trespasser. She is under my care." The two men exchanged shocked looks. "Sir," one of them whispered, "the press is already waiting outside. If they find out," Johnson raised a hand, "if they find out, let them write the truth." He turned to Aisha. "Finish your breakfast," he said softly. "You'll need strength." Then he walked out, leaving everyone frozen in surprise. That afternoon, the story broke. Tech billionaire Johnson found with homeless girl. Unknown lady seen leaving billionaire's property in his car. The headlines flew across Abuja like harmattan dust. Some people laughed, some said it was a scandal, others said it was kindness. But Johnson didn't care. He returned to the clinic with a small bag of clothes and a pair of slippers. "Here," he said, setting them beside Aisha's bed, "until you get your own." Aisha shook her head. "Sir, I don't want to cause you trouble." Johnson smiled faintly. "You didn't cause anything. Life did." Then he added, "You can call me Johnson, just Johnson." A few days later, when Aisha was well enough to walk again, he took her to a small bungalow in Garki. It wasn't fancy, just quiet, painted cream with 2 rooms and a tiny garden. "This house is in your name," Johnson said as he handed her a folder. Aisha froze. "What?" He nodded. "You deserve a place to start again. No one should ever have to sleep in an uncompleted building." Tears filled her eyes. "Why are you doing this for me?" He paused, watching the wind push at the leaves. "Because I once lost everything too," he said quietly, "and someone helped me when I didn't deserve it." That day, Aisha cried for the first time, not from sadness, but from relief. She cried until her heart felt light. Weeks passed. Aisha started working again, this time as a cleaner in a tech company. She woke early, ironed her uniforms neatly, and took the bus every morning. She didn't know that the same company, J-Tech Systems, belonged to Johnson. He never told her. He wanted her to live freely, without pressure. He watched quietly from afar, through reports and photos from his manager. Each time he saw her smiling at work, sweeping floors with pride, his heart softened. She was not like others he had met. Those who flattered him, those who only cared about his wealth. Aisha carried humility like perfume. It followed her everywhere. But one morning everything changed. As Aisha stepped out of her compound with her mop and lunchbox, a black SUV stopped in front of her gate. Two men in suits stepped out. "Are you Miss Aisha?" "Yes," she said slowly, clutching her bag. They nodded. "Mr. Johnson needs you to come with us. It's urgent." Aisha's heart began to race. "Is he okay?" "He's fine," one said quickly. "Please, come." The drive was long and silent. When the car stopped, she found herself in front of a tall glass building. The security guards bowed as they passed. A golden sign read, "Johnson Technologies Headquarters." Aisha's eyes widened. Inside, they took her to the top floor, into an office so wide it looked like a hotel suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows, silver desk, city view. And behind the desk, Johnson. He stood up slowly, smiling. "Welcome, Aisha," she blinked in disbelief. You're the owner of J-Tech." He nodded. "I was going to tell you, but I wanted you to see it this way." She looked around. "But why me? Why bring me here?" He gestured toward a chair. "Sit, please." When she sat, he said quietly, "Because I have an offer." She frowned. "An offer?" "Yes, but not what you think." He leaned forward. "I'm starting a foundation for the homeless, especially young women like you. I want you to help me lead it." Aisha's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm not educated enough." "You have something more important," Johnson said softly. "You have heart." For a moment she didn't speak. Her hands trembled as she stared at him. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he said gently. She smiled shyly. Then, yes. Days turned into weeks. Working beside Johnson changed Aisha's life. They visited orphanages, shelters, and uncompleted buildings just like the one she once slept in. Everywhere they went, Johnson watched her kindness bloom. She didn't do it for the cameras. She did it because she knew the pain. One evening, after an outreach at Kubwa, the sky turned orange as the sun dipped low. They stood beside Johnson's car, dust on their shoes. "Thank you," Johnson said suddenly. "For what?" she asked. "For reminding me what real life looks like." Aisha laughed softly. "You make it sound like I did something big." "You did," he said. "You made me see beyond money again." Their eyes met and lingered. Something quiet passed between them, something both sweet and scary. But before either could speak, a voice interrupted. "Sir, we have a problem." It was Mr. Alfred, Johnson's longtime assistant. His face was pale. "What happened?" Johnson asked. "The board just voted," Alfred said. "They want to remove you as CEO." Aisha gasped. "What? Why?" Alfred looked at her, then back at Johnson. "They said your recent distractions are making headlines. The photos with her, the foundation, the rumors that you're falling for a homeless girl." Johnson's eyes hardened. "And what did you tell them?" Alfred hesitated. "I told them the rumors might be true." The air froze. Aisha's lips parted in shock. Johnson took a deep breath, calm but sharp. "Then we fight." He turned to Aisha. "Don't be afraid. This story isn't over." He stepped closer. "But from today..." He paused again, voice steady but filled with emotion. From today, I'll protect you with everything I have." Before Aisha could reply, a loud bang echoed through the building. Doors slamming open downstairs, shouts and camera flashes filling the lobby. The reporters had found them, and this time they wouldn't leave quietly. The sound of shouting filled the lobby, cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters pushed and called out questions that sounded more like gunshots. "Mr. Johnson, who is she? Is it true you're marrying a homeless girl? Is this why you're losing your CEO position?" Aisha froze near the elevator. Her palms were sweating, her legs trembling. Johnson stepped in front of her, shielding her like a wall of calm strength. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Security guards rushed forward, trying to control the crowd, but the reporters kept shouting. Some climbed on chairs, others pressed their microphones into Johnson's face. He raised his hand. "Enough!" His voice cut through the noise like a knife. The lobby went silent. Even the cameras stopped clicking for a moment. Johnson looked around. "You want the truth," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Fine. The truth is, this young woman was homeless because this world doesn't give everyone the same chance. She didn't steal, she didn't beg. She worked hard, got sick, and lost everything. And yes, she slept in one of my unfinished buildings. I found her there, and I helped her, not because I pitied her, but because she reminded me what kindness looks like." Whispers spread through the reporters. Some lowered their cameras, others looked at Aisha, suddenly unsure of their anger. Then Johnson added softly, "If that makes me guilty, then I'm proud to be guilty." He turned to Aisha and said, "Come." They walked past the crowd, through the doors, into the afternoon sun. The cameras flashed behind them like fireworks, but neither of them looked back. That night, Abuja social media went wild. Billionaire and homeless girl. Johnson and Aisha. Love or scandal. Some people mocked them, others defended them, but for Aisha it was overwhelming. Her small world had become a storm. She sat on the couch of her little bungalow, scrolling through comments on her cheap phone. Some called her an angel, others called her names that burned like fire. A knock came at the door. She jumped. When she opened it, Johnson was there. His face was calm, but his eyes looked tired. He stepped inside quietly and handed her a file. "What's this?" she asked. He sat down, rubbing his forehead. "The board removed me as CEO today." Aisha's eyes widened. "What? Because of me?" Johnson smiled weakly. "No, because of them. Because they fear stories that don't fit their world." Tears filled her eyes. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be." He leaned back. "I built that company from nothing. I can build again." Aisha looked down at her feet. "You shouldn't have helped me. I ruined everything." He looked at her sharply. "Don't ever say that again. You didn't ruin anything. You reminded me what matters." Silence filled the room for a moment. Outside, the night was quiet except for the chirping of crickets. Aisha whispered, "What will you do now?" Johnson smiled faintly. "I'll start something new, maybe smaller, maybe better. But this time, I want you to be part of it." "Me?" "Yes," he said. "You've been honest with me from day one. That's something money can't buy." Aisha looked into his eyes. "Why do you care so much?" Johnson's voice dropped low. "Because when I look at you, I see the part of myself I lost long ago." Weeks turned into months. Johnson started a new company called Rebuild Tech. He hired young people from poor communities and trained them. Aisha helped him manage the foundation side. She learned fast, worked hard, and slowly became the heart of the organization. Everywhere they went together, people whispered. Some still doubted her. Some still said she was after his money. But Johnson never cared. He introduced her proudly at events, saying, "This is Aisha, my partner in rebuilding lives." It was the first time anyone had ever called her partner. Still, Aisha kept her distance emotionally. She was grateful, but she didn't want to give him reason to think she expected anything more. Yet, each day she found it harder to ignore the way he looked at her. Not with pity, but with quiet admiration. One Friday evening, after a long outreach in Lugbe, their car broke down by the roadside. The driver called for a mechanic, but Johnson stepped out first. The sky was gold with sunset. Aisha sat quietly on the car's hood, her scarf fluttering in the wind. Johnson leaned beside her. "You ever think about your parents?" She nodded slowly. "Every day. I wish they could see this. Maybe they'd finally rest." He smiled gently. "They'd be proud of you." She turned to him. "And what about you? Do you ever think about your past?" He laughed softly. "Too much sometimes. I grew up in a small room not bigger than your kitchen. My father was a tailor. My mother sold beans. When they died, I promised myself I'd never be poor again. I worked day and night until I forgot what peace looked like." Aisha watched him. "Maybe peace isn't something you find," she said quietly. "Maybe it's someone you meet." He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, everything stopped. The cars, the wind, the noise, all went silent. Then his phone rang. He sighed and picked it up. It was his assistant. "Sir, it's about the board. They've offered to give you your position back, but..." Johnson frowned. "But what?" "They said you must publicly deny any relationship with that girl." A long pause followed. Aisha's chest tightened. She whispered, "You should do it. You worked hard for that position." Johnson turned to her. "You think I'll give up my soul to keep a title?" "Please," she said softly, "you don't have to protect me." "I'm not protecting you," he said, stepping closer. "I'm protecting what's right." He ended the call, tossed the phone back into the car, and looked into her eyes. "Let them take everything, but they'll never take my truth." For a moment, Aisha felt tears press behind her eyes. "Why are you doing all this for me?" Johnson smiled gently. "Because I realized something." "What?" she asked, voice trembling. "That the night I found you in that uncompleted building..." He paused, his eyes soft but steady. "It wasn't me saving you. It was you saving me." Their eyes locked and silence filled the air again, heavy, sweet, uncertain. Before Aisha could speak, a bright flash exploded in front of them. Cameras, voices, reporters again. They'd followed the car. "Mr. Johnson, is this your girlfriend? Are you really marrying her? Smile for the camera." Aisha panicked, stepping back. Johnson reached for her hand and pulled her close. "Let them see," he said, and before she could say anything, he turned to the flashing lights, held her hand high, and said clearly, "Yes, I love her." The reporters gasped. Cameras clicked faster. The world had its headline again. But for Aisha, time stopped. The man she once met as a stranger in the rain had just confessed his love before the whole city. And that night, everything changed again. Because the next morning, a knock came at her door. And when she opened it, a man stood there holding a white envelope with the seal of the Abuja High Court. He said, "Miss Aisha Hassan, you're required to appear in court regarding Mr. Johnson's estate." Her heart dropped. Court, estate. She froze. Something was wrong. And deep inside, she knew. This love story was about to face its hardest test. The air inside the courtroom felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Aisha sat quietly on the wooden bench, hands clasped so tight her knuckles turned white. People whispered behind her. Some pointed, some just stared. At the front of the court sat Johnson, his expression calm but serious. On his right side was his lawyer. On the left, members of his board, including one woman Aisha had never seen before. She was tall, elegant, and carried herself like someone used to being obeyed. She wore a cream suit, gold earrings, and a sharp smile that didn't reach her eyes. Aisha felt her stomach twist when the woman's eyes met hers. The judge entered and everyone stood. The session began. "This case," the judge said, adjusting his glasses, "concerns ownership of properties belonging to Mr. Johnson Oladil, founder of J-Tech Systems, and the matter of potential inheritance and misuse of estate funds." Aisha blinked. "Inheritance?" She turned to Johnson, confused. He gave her a small nod, as if to say, "Don't worry." The woman in the cream suit stood up. "My lord," she said, her voice smooth but cold, "I am Mrs. Gloria Oladell, Mr. Johnson's elder sister. For months, my brother has been distracted by a certain influence. This young woman," she pointed sharply toward Aisha, "is a manipulative girl who took advantage of his kindness and is now trying to control his assets." Gasps filled the courtroom. Aisha's breath caught in her throat. "That's not true," she said, before realizing she had spoken out loud. "Order," the judge barked. Johnson stood. "My lord, I am aware of my sister's concerns, but they are unfounded. Miss Aisha Hassan has not taken a single kobo from me. Everything she owns, I gave her freely." Mrs. Gloria smiled thinly. "Oh yes, a bungalow, a bank account, a car, even access to your new company's funds." "That's a lie," Aisha whispered, shaking her head. The woman continued, "We all know how these stories go. A rich man, a poor girl, sympathy turns to scandal. But this time, I will not watch my brother's life turn into a headline tragedy." Johnson clenched his jaw. "Gloria, enough." "No," she snapped, her voice breaking slightly. "You lost your parents too, Johnson. I promised to protect you, and I'm doing it now." The courtroom fell silent. The judge sighed. "Let us settle this calmly. Mr. Johnson, can you confirm your assets and intent?" Johnson nodded. "Yes, my lord. Everything in my will remains unchanged. However, I've made arrangements to donate part of my estate to the homeless foundation Miss Aisha and I co-founded. It's called Rebuild Hearts Initiative." Mrs. Gloria's face hardened. "So it's true. You're giving half of your fortune to a stranger." "She's not a stranger," Johnson said quietly. "She's my future." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Aisha's heart stopped. She looked at him, eyes wide. Did he just say that? But before she could process it, Gloria slammed a folder on the table. "Then perhaps she should know the full story." The judge frowned. "What do you mean?" Gloria turned to Aisha, her eyes sharp. "Did he tell you how our parents died? Or how he built his first company?" Aisha shook her head slowly. "No," Gloria sneered. "He didn't tell you because he was engaged at the time. To my friend Clara. The woman he left at the altar 10 years ago when he suddenly decided money was more important than love. She killed herself 3 weeks later." The words hit like thunder. The court gasped. Johnson's lawyer rose immediately. "Objection, my lord. That has no bearing on this case." But the damage was done. Everyone was staring at Johnson now, whispering, judging. Aisha looked at him, her heart breaking. He stared down at the floor, saying nothing. Gloria continued, "Now tell me, Mr. Perfect Billionaire, are you sure you're not just repeating your old mistakes? Are you helping this girl, or hiding behind her?" "Enough," Johnson shouted, his voice echoing. The sound silenced even the judge. His chest rose and fell. "You have no idea what you're talking about, Gloria. I left because I was lied to. Clara didn't die because of me. She died because of the lies you fed her." Gloria's face went pale. "You think I—" "Yes," he said, his voice trembling with anger. "You ruined one woman's life with your pride. I won't let you ruin another." The courtroom was dead silent. Then Johnson turned to Aisha. His eyes softened, but pain lingered in them. "Aisha, I didn't want you to hear it this way, but yes, I've made mistakes. I've hurt people. But you made me believe in peace again. I'll fight for you, no matter what they say." Aisha couldn't speak, her eyes filled with tears. The judge finally spoke. "Enough family drama. This is a legal hearing, not a confession booth. We'll continue tomorrow morning." He banged the gavel. Outside the courtroom, the air was cold. Reporters surrounded them again. Cameras flashed. "Aisha, is it true he left another woman before? Johnson, are you really giving her your fortune? Are you two still getting married?" Security pushed them back. Johnson placed his hand gently on Aisha's shoulder. "Ignore them," he said. But Aisha couldn't. Her heart was spinning. The image of the woman named Clara haunted her mind. "Johnson," she whispered when they reached the car. "Is it true?" He sighed deeply. "Some of it. But not how she told it. I'll explain everything, I promise." She nodded weakly. "Okay." But her voice didn't sound sure. As they drove home, Aisha stared out the window. Raindrops began to fall, small and cold. She remembered the first night she met him, how he stood in the rain and gave her his jacket. That night he was her hero. Now she wasn't sure what he was. At midnight, Johnson sat alone in his study, holding a photo. An old one of a smiling young woman in a white gown. He closed his eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry, Clara. I'm trying to make it right this time." His phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "If you marry that girl, I'll expose everything." Gee. Johnson's eyes narrowed. He stood, went to the window and looked out at the city lights. He knew this fight was no longer about wealth or image. It was about truth. And outside in her small room, Aisha sat awake too, holding her scarf tightly. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "God, please show me if he's real. Or just another test." At that exact moment, thunder rolled across the Abuja sky. Somewhere far away, a car engine started. A shadowy figure drove off into the night, carrying files that could destroy everything Johnson had built. Morning came with the weight of storm clouds still heavy above Abuja. The news was everywhere. Billionaire Johnson faces court over homeless girl. TV reporters camped outside the courthouse gates, waiting for a headline, a scandal, a fall. But inside a small guest room far away from the noise, Aisha knelt on her mat and prayed. Her voice was soft but trembling. "God, please, if this love is a lie, take it away. But if it's real, let the truth stand." When she finished, she took a deep breath, wrapped her scarf around her head, and left for court. Her mind was heavy, but her heart still full of hope. The courtroom was even fuller than before. Reporters whispered. Camera lights blinked. Gloria sat confidently beside her lawyer, a smirk on her face. Johnson arrived moments later. His suit was dark, but his face looked calm, almost peaceful. When he saw Aisha, he gave her a gentle nod. She nodded back, trying to smile. The judge entered, and silence filled the room. "Mr. Johnson," the judge began, "before we continue, do you have anything else to say in your defense?" Johnson stood. His voice was steady. "Yes, my lord, but I'm not here to defend my money. I'm here to defend my truth." He turned to face the crowd, and then to Gloria. "You were right, Gloria," he said quietly. "I made mistakes in my past. But you left out one thing. Clara didn't die because I abandoned her. She died because someone lied to her about me." Gloria's eyes flickered. "You're twisting stories again." Johnson shook his head and pulled out a small envelope from his pocket. "This," he said, holding it up, "is Clara's last letter. It was found by her pastor after her death, but I never saw it until 2 months ago." He handed it to the judge. The judge unfolded it and began to read aloud. The room went silent as the words echoed. "To Johnson, I wish you had known the truth. They told me you married another woman in Lagos. I believed them and felt my world collapse. If only I had waited to hear your voice one last time. Forgive me for leaving. Forgive your sister, too. She thought she was protecting you. Clara. Gasps filled the room. Gloria's face turned pale. She sank slowly into her chair. The judge looked at her. Mrs. Gloria, do you deny these claims? Tears filled her eyes. She shook her head. I thought I was saving him. I didn't know she'd... Her voice broke. I didn't know she'd take her own life. Johnson's jaw trembled, but his voice stayed calm. You destroyed my peace once, Gloria, but I forgave you long ago. Please, don't destroy Aisha's too. Aisha covered her mouth with her hands. Tears rolled down her cheeks. The judge leaned back. This case has taken a personal turn. From what I see, there is no fraud, no coercion, and no misuse of assets. Mr. Johnson has the right to use his wealth as he pleases. He banged the gavel once. Case dismissed. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some clapped quietly, some shook their heads, but Johnson turned only to one person, Aisha. He walked toward her through the whispers and camera flashes, knelt beside her chair, and said in a low, steady voice, Aisha, I've lost many things in life, but with you, I found peace. If you'll still have me, I want to start again. Not as a billionaire and a homeless girl, but as two people who chose kindness when the world chose pride. Her lips trembled. She tried to speak but couldn't. Instead, she reached for his hand. Her small fingers curled around his, and the courtroom erupted in cheers. The reporters outside finally got their headline, Love Wins. Billionaire marries the girl he once found in his abandoned house. A month later, under the bright Abuja sky, a quiet garden ceremony took place. No luxury ballroom, no gold chairs, just flowers, family, and sincerity. Aisha wore a simple white gown with lace sleeves. Her eyes sparkled like morning dew. Johnson stood beside her in a clean navy blue suit, smiling for the first time in weeks. When the priest said, "You may kiss your bride," the crowd clapped as Johnson lifted her veil and whispered, "You turned my loneliness into home." Tears rolled down her cheeks, "And you turned my pain into peace." They kissed, and even the wind seemed to celebrate. 2 years later, children's laughter filled a wide compound in Gwarimpa. Aisha, now 22, stood on the veranda, carrying a small baby boy in her arms. Another child, a little girl with her father's sharp eyes, ran around the garden chasing butterflies. Johnson stepped out from the car, still in his office shirt, tie loosened, smiling at the sight. When the little girl saw him, she shouted, "Daddy!" and ran into his arms. He lifted her high, laughing. "Where's Mummy?" "Here," Aisha said, smiling warmly. She walked toward him, her hair tied in a soft bun, baby on her hip. Johnson looked at her like a man who still couldn't believe his luck. "You look more beautiful every day," he said softly. Aisha laughed. "And you still forget to take off your tie before carrying the baby." They both laughed, the sound light and full of love. Behind them, a marble plaque stood near the garden gate. It read, "The Rebuild Hearts Foundation, founded by Johnson and Aisha Oladel, for everyone who has ever slept in the dark and still dreamed of light." Epilogue, the night that started it all. Sometimes when the rain falls hard in Abuja, Aisha still looks out the window and remembers that first night. The cold cement, the flashlight, and the stranger who offered his jacket. She smiles and whispers, "That night, destiny knocked with wet shoes." Johnson, hearing her from across the room, walks up behind her, wraps his arms around her and says, "And I'm still grateful you opened the door." The rain keeps falling softly outside, but inside their home, it's all warmth. Proof that even from broken walls, Love can build a palace. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories. Thank you for watching.